Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight with your award-winning host, Dale Davidson. Dale interviews fascinating guests from top-ranked celebrities to people just like you who have an important story to tell. For more than 15 years, Dale has broadcast every week from the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. He finds the people who really make Las Vegas a one-of-a-kind city and lets the world know just what's happening in this remarkable town. You'll discover why 50 million people visit the entertainment capital of the world every year. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of Las Vegas Tonight.
And welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We are here at the Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, and we are doing everything we can to promote the concept of freedom, as does my guest, who is a terrific guest. Scott Walter is the president of the Capital Research Center, and we're going to find out all about that and what it is. And he's from Knoxville, and loves Tennessee, and so do I. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for having me so much, Dale.
And welcome to Vegas. You said you've never been here before.
No, never been.
I want to get your take once you've walked the Strip and you've seen the Mob Museum and you've, experienced everything we have to offer. Please come and tell me what you think.
I sure will.
Yeah, it's an interesting town. Let's put it that way. So tell me a little bit about the Capital Research Center and why did you start it?
Well, it was started about 35 years ago by a vice president from the Heritage Foundation.
Oh, okay.
A lot of folks know Heritage Foundation, of course. And the idea was to have a watchdog on the whole nonprofit world and both sides of that world. So the givers and the chasers of the money.
Okay.
And not just all types of givers, so foundations, but also individual donors, and then also corporations. For many years, we were best known because we would survey foundations about where they're giving their money. Now they didn't have to tell us, so eventually we made them so embarrassed that they stopped answering the survey, so we don't do that anymore because it's not legally required for a corporation to report that. What we, of course, mainly found was the craziness, which you still see today, of corporations funding leftist groups. Just the other day, one of my buddies in D.C. who works on corporate stuff was just aghast that there is a major insurance company that was giving money to Medicare for All fights. It's like, which will destroy the entire, you're going to fund the people that want to shut your industry down. You just don't get...
It makes no sense,
No, well, the only sense it makes is, the Churchill's famous line about, somebody who feeds the alligator hoping he'll be the last one eaten. And the real answer is it just gets you closer to the crocodile and you just look like a more tasty morsel. But, you had energy companies giving money to Greenpeace and whatnot. And so if you give Greenpeace $1 million, all it does is hire more people to harass your whole operation.
Stick their boat in front of your tanker.
Yeah, it's a new boat. We get a new boat. We get 2 new boats. So a business leader can be an oxymoron, unfortunately.
Yeah, you wonder about that, and they'll support, and I guess I understand it, but they'll support both sides of the aisle, even if indeed, a liberal Democrat is his or her values are antithetical to theirs. And is it just buying influence? Is that what it's all about?
It's they think they're buying some insurance and hedging some bets, but I don't see a lot of evidence of that.
Yeah.
So, although you have to give the left credit, the left works its way into these places much more than you'd realize. I'll give you a classic example, right?
Sure.
So, Hillary Care, right? The last big effort to socialize medicine.
Right.
So, Hillary Care, generally in D.C. and America, most people who followed it say, well, it was those commercials that the drug trade group paid for Harry and Louise or whatever it was. And they're really powerful.
I remember.
And they persuaded people. I think Rush Limbaugh gets some credit too. But anyway, Hillary Care went down.
Right.
And so again, what the left is smart. It doesn't say, okay, we lost, so I guess we give up. No, it immediately starts fighting. And one of the things it does is it focuses on that, what had been the left's enemy's strong point, which was the trade group for pharmaceuticals. And by the time Obamacare is a live possibility of maybe passing,
Right.
guess what? There is a left-wing union veteran who is the key person at the trade group for the pharmaceutical industry. Wow. And you know what? You may have noticed the pharmaceutical industry did not oppose Obamacare the way it did Hillary Care.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And they got a different result.
Yeah.
So now, not too long after that, of course.
Can be done.
Well, here's the thing. So what happens a couple of years later, you have all of a sudden the drug companies are facing price controls on drugs, which would really hurt them. And it's being pushed, of course, by the insurance industry because this is the evil of socialism, right? It's always vicious circles. So when you socialize this whole sector the way that Obamacare did, then you have the subsectors all trying to screw each other over and get advantage through government, not through offering you, the consumer, better prices, better service, better drug. No, just
we need more lobbyists.
Yes.
We need to throw more money at the PAC or whatever it happens to be.
So you have the drug companies, after doing nothing to stop Obamacare, and in fact thinking, oh, well, we're going to make money off this, discovering, oh my God, now the insurance people are going to use government to set price controls, and we're going to be hurt.
Yeah. Talk about how you dig deep. We'll give Soros a shot here. Dig deep to find out where his money's going and what he's supporting. And he seems to, even though his values are totally antithetical to mine, he seems to be pretty smart. He seems to go after the weak points. Tell me a little bit about George Soros and how you track him.
Sure. Well, thanks for asking, because that is Capital Research Center's mission, is we investigate the left deeply and expose it widely. And Soros, of course, is one of the great paymasters of the left.
Yes.
So now he makes it hard because he has such a vast array of entities through which he sluices the money and activist groups that he uses as boots on the ground.
Right.
So it is not an easy thing, but there is, if you dig carefully, there is an amazing amount of material on the record. It's just tricky putting the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together and really figuring out what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the best place your viewers can enjoy this is our website called influencewatch.org. And you can just look up Soros.
Influencewatch.org. We'll put that up on the screen. Yeah.
I appreciate it. And as I said, you can start just typing in George Soros, but then you'll have links to, it's an online encyclopedia of the left. So you'll have links to the Open Society Foundation and the Open Society Institute and the this and that and the other, and you can follow a lot of this. But one thing I'd mention for your viewers is, for instance, you made the point about he's strategic in what he goes after.
Yes, yes.
So just as I said, just as the left, after the Hillary Care loss, went after their big enemy, the pharmaceutical industry, and worked to change that, Soros, for instance, has what I jokingly call his rent-a-minister program.
I want to hear about this.
So he knows that most people who believe in God do not believe in socialism. It's almost like it's a ersatz religion.
Yes.
And so since he wants something other than a market system, he knows, well, this is a big swath of people. I need to at least try to erode their support for their current beliefs and make inroads with them for the socialist side of the ledger.
Sure.
And so he will fund left-wing evangelical magazines or left-wing evangelical ministries and whatnot.
And there are some.
And there are. And again, he doesn't think he's going to get 80% of that vote for the candidates he likes, but if he got 8% more, that would be
that could change
massive.
the election.
Yeah, all kinds of elections would flip if you did that. So, so that's something he did. Now, one of the most notorious examples of this, around 5 to 10 years ago, was Sojourners magazine, and my friend Marvin Olasky, who over the years has done some work for us, and now is at World magazine. Marvin exposed some of this money flow into Sojourners, and Jim Wallace, the head of Sojourners, called him a liar. And interestingly, the Open Society Foundation website, where the information in black and white was held, all of a sudden that disappeared from their site. But luckily, other places had it, and eventually Jim Wallace, the Sojourners, had to admit, well, I guess we did get some Soros money. Now, it was, like the most recent grant was $200,000, and he'd forgotten that because we all forget when people write us $200,000 checks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and well, the year before it was like $100,000. I found. I can't swear to the numbers, but it was like $100,000 a year before.
Yeah.
It
was in there somewhere.
It was more than 10% of his budget, and I know, if you got a business, 10% of your budget, you don't really, nah.
No,
so,
I say thank you, Lord.
Yeah, just somehow happened. So that's the kind of thing that Soros is doing. But I will say, though, I have one caveat on this, which is Soros is very big, and in decades of looking at the left, I have never found a significant left-wing entity that didn't get money from Soros somehow, and the Ford Foundation. So my caveat is those are the two most important donors of the left, unless you want to count the federal government, which lots of left-wing groups are on the dole one way or another, getting your tax dollars.
Yeah.
But
and things like NPR, for example.
Exactly. But it is important to remember that there are lots of other, there's Tom Steyer, there's the MacArthur Foundation, there's the Pew Charitable Trust. There are lots of really big folks, and part of our job is keeping up with Soros, because he's notorious, but also looking for the next Soroses, like the Tom Steyer and whatnot. Although Steyer actually, he's not getting good return on investment.
Not yet.
He's not having a lot of success. And frankly, I think it's hilarious he's running for president because he's just going to hurt the other places, the other people. So that's fine by me. But I will say, though, on Soros, speaking of Soros and tax dollars, one of the things we're going to be later this year, we're going to have a very large report on, and that's going to be your funding of the Soros network. So I hope he sent you a thank you card and some flowers.
But
because I'll explain that for you, and that is, Mr. Soros comes from Hungary himself,
I know
and he operates all over the world, literally all over the world.
And he's a
continent.
currency guy.
Yes, well, he made his money going around and destroying currencies in various countries. Yes, most notoriously England. That's where he really made his first big fortune. But other countries have seen his beneficence as well. Lord knows if he supported conservative causes, there wouldn't be enough ink for the New York Times to denounce somebody who goes around destroying countries' currencies. But anyway, so this is a story from the last administration, when Mr. Soros and the State Department were like that. They would have him come give talks at the State Department, or they'd have him go to embassies around the world and give talks and laud him and praise him and all. And it's understandable how that his side of this friendship, because the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which is one of the major spigots for money in the State Department. And State Department money is your money, your tax dollars
at work.
Those, under Secretary Clinton and President Obama, tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, tax dollars, were poured into the Soros network all over the world. And we are, as I said, we're putting together, it's so vast that it's not a simple thing even to begin to comb through. You were saying, how do you track all this? So the Soros leaks, that a year or two ago, some hacker could well have been connected to Russian intelligence, because they love causing all of us fits. But nobody knows. But some big hack of the Open Society Foundation stuff came out, and you got to see what they say internally about their grants. Externally it's, assist democracy in Macedonia. Internally it's register every LGBT person in the country for the candidates we want, or this, that, and the other. So, in fact, a huge amount of it was voter registration, getting out the vote. And by the way, Soros does that here in America, too. Tens of millions of Soros dollars and Ford Foundation dollars and other funders you've never even heard of.
To grassroots
To
efforts?
grassroots 501c3s.
Yes.
I don't recommend the folks at home try this, because it's very easy to get the IRS shutting you down.
But because you're supposed to stay out of politics.
Well, here's the thing. The rule, as usual, with one of the problems with big government, right? All the rules are fuzzy, and it's not, you can't be too sure and all. Generally speaking, I'll tell you that the general idea is that nonpartisan voter registration and even get out the vote is okay. Now, in D.C., a few years ago, there was one of Ralph Nader's groups was giving a talk about this, and I just raised my question, said, ma'am, excuse me. And it was a big DC audience there, but a bunch of 501c3 groups, leaders and all this, left and right. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, can you name me one single 501c3 in America that registers votes in a nonpartisan way? And exactly, the whole room, the entire room laughed. Celinda Lake, a left-wing Democrat pollster next to the person that asked the question, threw her head back laughing. Even the woman I asked the question smirked for a second before she could compose herself and inform us that it really wouldn't be right of her to start naming. It's like, I just asked for one in the whole country.
And it could be a relative of yours, and you can get away with it.
Yes. You know? So the answer is, and by the way, the right doesn't do that. That is, the big conservative foundations, Scaife and Bradley, Pokes and all, they don't use C3s to do voter registration and get out the vote. But Ford, Soros,
C4
they use C4, right? Exactly.
Okay,
in fact, all those remember when Obama, in speaking of impeachment, since it's in the air these days, when Obama abused the IRS, which was one of the articles of impeachment against Nixon.
Anything that said patriot or freedom or, but buzzwords.
Those were there was like 300 of them that were stopped. One of them, I believe, was a C3 that was being asked for. All the rest were C4s because it was for the 2012 election. Conservatives were trying to follow the law carefully because we get in trouble when we break laws. So they all wanted to start these C4s where, yes, it's completely reasonable for C4s to be registering people. And that's what they were doing. And you don't have to pretend that you don't care who wins and whatnot. Whereas the left just puts tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars into this.
Oh, that's wild. That's wild. We need to take a brief break and participate in the economics of our nation by selling some soap or something. Scott Walter is here. He's a fascinating guy. Please stick around. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson, the host and producer of the Christian TV show Las Vegas Tonight. I'd like to take a moment right now to talk to families. First, to the parents, grandparents, and others who watch over and care for our precious children, child development experts say that children won't become fearful if you remain calm and reassuring. They say that you should answer your child's questions openly and honestly while staying positive and upbeat. And now, to all the kids who are watching, your mom and dad and everyone who cares for you are making sure that you're safe. It's very important to them that you're happy and healthy because they love you very, very much. You know, an important way to feel better when you're scared is to talk to God. Let's say a prayer together now. Dear God, please take care of me and all the people I love. Help me to be strong when I hear or see scary things. I know that the people who love me are doing everything they can to keep me safe. Please give them the strength they need to be brave whenever they need to protect me. Thank you, God, for always loving me. Amen, and God bless you. We are in the midst of some very difficult times, facing tougher challenges than most of us have ever seen. We're very worried about our health, our families, our safety, our finances, and the future of our nation. You know, Jesus told us that we would have some very serious troubles. In the Bible, in the book of John, chapter 16, verse 33, he says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. He means that he walks with you through all the troubles you're facing right now. He wants you to be at peace and to trust him. He's the real answer when you are struck with tragedy, or you're scared, or you've lost hope, and you just don't know where to turn. He's telling you to turn to him. Now that you're at home much of the time, talk to God. That's what prayer is. Read his book, the Bible. The book of John is a great place to start. It tells us all about Jesus, the Son of God, and what he did when he was here on earth. You'll learn that Jesus came to live with us in order to show us how to spend eternity with him in heaven. To become a follower of Jesus Christ is very simple. You say a prayer and really mean it. Would you join me now in that prayer? Dear Lord Jesus, I am a sinner. I ask you for your forgiveness. I believe that you died for my sins and rose from the dead. I turn from my sins starting right now and invite you to come into my heart and my life. I wish to trust and follow you as my Lord and Savior. Amen. If you've said that prayer, you've been born again. Turn to Jesus now for the answers you so desperately need. You'll be glad you did. We are here with Scott Walter of the Capital Research Center. He's the president, and it's fascinating what these guys are doing. Guys and gals are doing. You were talking earlier in our first segment about how, and it's a crazy thing, but how corporations are funding their enemies, essentially, you know, causes and people who are antithetical to their own economic self-interest. Let's talk about foundations. You mentioned foundations, and the great foundations were founded by business people who would have made great libertarians, right? Had there been a libertarian party when, John D. Rockefeller was around, or Carnegie, or Ford, or the founders of these great empires. And now these foundations have become very liberal. How did this happen? What's the history of this?
Well, the first thing I'll say is somebody who really wants to dig into the history should just give me a ring, and we will be happy to send them our book, a nice fat book that's a history of all this, because there's so many sad stories is the reason it's a big book.
Yeah.
And it gets bigger every time we bring a new edition out. It's got more chapters of more horrible things.
Yeah.
But
what's the name of the book?
It is How to Secure Your Legacy.
How to Secure Your Legacy.
We have aimed it at today's donors, the point of this is the people who should especially call for a free copy of the book are if you have a serious legacy that you're trying to figure out, what am I, God's been good to me, the American economy has been good to me, the free market's been good to me,
right,
and I want to do, I want to give back, I want to do with this. Well, that's all great, but you want to read this book so you don't make the mistakes that Ford and Pew and MacArthur and the rest made, because it's just such a sad, grim thing. I mean, I've met people who knew James MacArthher, for instance, when he was down in Palm Beach.
And the Genius Grant, he's most famous for.
And they knew him. They knew him personally, and they're aghast at this, at the rest. And of course, Rockefeller would never the stuff Rockefeller funds now would be pass out if you tried to explain it to him. So the point of the book ends with a couple of short little chapters on what not to do, basically, and that is don't set up a perpetual foundation. The biggest mistake those guys made was that they set it up forever, and the second biggest mistake they made was they didn't give any clear instructions at all. Most of those giants that you mentioned, those were like, for the goodness of mankind,
or the health of Americans, or something.
Ain't good enough. It should never be perpetual forever, and you should be super clear on what you want to support and super clear on what you don't want to support. And in fact, you should give as much as you can before you even go to your reward, because you need to learn. It's hard to give money away, and you need to learn how to do that well.
It's a skill.
And you need what groups are good. Like people say, well, I want to help children. Well, okay, there are thousands of groups helping children. Some are really good, some are really bad, most are mediocre. It's going to take you a while to figure that out. So giving while you're living, and then giving big bequests to the groups you figured out are good. They'll spend them pretty quick. They may go bad in 50 years, but they'll spend your money in 5 years. Whereas if you set it up forever, 50 years from now, your money is bad. So, another part of that story, though, of course, is because forgive me, but I like talking about the bad left guys, since that's our mission. That the left, you want to. One reason the left accuses the rest of the world of being power mad, money mad, is because that's the way they are. So you set up these billions.
They ascribe it's projection.
Exactly. So you have this huge pot of money here called the Ford Foundation. moth to flame for people like that. And they get control of it. You mentioned Andrew Carnegie. You know, he's probably most famous for the Carnegie libraries. There are still hundreds of them all over the country.
Yes.
Do you know why he did that?
No.
Because he was a totally impoverished Scotsman, immigrant to these shores. And there was a rich guy in town who had sort of an informal public library that the rich guy himself just let kids like that do. That was his education. He didn't get any, government schools didn't educate Andrew Carnegie. He educated himself in that guy's library. So when he is a magnate and tycoon himself,
he wants
one of the
everybody
first
to have
things,
this
he's like, and again, classic American free market idea, right? We're going to give you the opportunity to better yourself, and we know it's going to be great. And so he does these libraries. But, you know, he took himself off his own board of his main philanthropy before he'd even died. So he didn't even die before bad folks on that board said, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. So, I mean, it's just, it's you can't trust anybody. You can't trust your college. God, please don't trust your college. You can't, in the end, you can't trust family members because maybe your kids are okay, but, you know, their kids are going to face a lot worse temptations.
Yeah, who knows?
You know, you never know. Or again, people whisper in their ears and whatnot. And again, the religious thing is important here. You talk about how does this happen? You know, if I worked really hard and made a fortune by providing goods and services people wanted to pay me for, I don't feel a lot of guilt for having that money. And maybe the kids, the next generation's not so much, but by the time you're on the third and fourth generation, they grew up the lap of luxury. They didn't earn, it's not their fault they didn't earn it, they were just born that way.
Just happened to be there.
So so they're more likely to feel that guilt about why should I be so lucky and blessed and all that. And again, the left is it's fake religion. So, you know, socialism will take care of that guilt for you. You don't have to go to confessional.
Government will take care of it.
You don't have to get down on your knees and say, forgive me for my sins. Like, we'll make it a lot easier for you. And we'll give you a prize at a big fancy dinner in Manhattan.
We'll name something after you.
Exactly. And you don't have to feel bad about that anymore. And we're not going to make many demands on you either, other than just like letting us have the money.
And so, you know, a sunset to the period of time where the money is spent.
Absolutely.
So hopefully when you and or your children are still alive. And then
people who knew you and knew what you want.
And control of the board is the key, isn't it?
Well, that's the other thing. You shouldn't let, nobody should be on the board unless they're 100% aligned with you. Nobody should be a staffer unless they're 100% aligned with you. You know, I don't care if it's your brother-in-law or, you know, your sister or what, I mean, if they're with you, great. If they're not, I'm sorry, this really isn't appropriate.
That's smart. That's very smart. Where are you going in the future with what you're doing?
Well,
or do you want to reveal it at this point?
Well, I revealed one thing, which is that in fact, we hope. I've been talking to a Senate committee chairman about that Soros report, for instance. So, as I hope you may see some stuff in the news in the fall
about some investigation that we're actually behind.
Well, it'd be nice. Yes, it'd be nice because again, it was all this tax money, and the other thing is. There need to be reform. It's not enough, you know, slowly but surely the Trump administration's, you know, ceasing to do as much bad, although the State Department's not an easy thing to make better. But, you know, someday there won't be a Republican in the White House and the left will be back in. And there need to be reforms in the State Department's funding systems so that you can't give money to your big ideological allies. Again, if you think of the Kochs. If Charles and David Koch were persuading Donald Trump to pour tens of millions of dollars into groups that they had started, there'd be riots. And I wouldn't object to it.
It's economic royalism.
You shouldn't. The federal government has no business pouring my tax dollars into Charles and David Koch's philanthropy. That's for them to do, and that's what they're doing.
And they have every right to do so.
And they've got every right to do that. And I don't say Soros didn't have a right to start nonprofits and give them his billions, but he doesn't get my money at the tax man's taken from me at gunpoint to do it. And so there need to be serious reforms on that. So that's one thing. But the other is, you know, the left is just so vast, and these money streams are so vast that we every week we stumble on some new stunning thing. I will say one of our biggest things we're doing this year, though, is dark money. Now,
that's interesting.
Now,
Define that.
Well, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There isn't a very precise, what it really means. One of my friends who's been in politics a long time, and he has the best definition of dark money. Dark money is support for speech that the left wants to silence. That's what dark money is.
Okay.
And I'll give you a quick, easy example.
Because they're
of this.
taking dark money too.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, they have massively better, more. It literally is darker. That is to say, it's harder to trace and see and figure. And there's more of it.
It's in a black hole.
And there's more of it. And yet, of course, if you said dark money, it's like, oh well, that's what those evil big business guys do to do right-wing things.
Yeah.
No. So I'll give you a classic example because it's vivid in everybody's mind. You remember last year there was that little dust up about Brett Kavanaugh and whether he was going to get on the Supreme Court, right? Little tiny thing. So, and now, because of course our side had a victory, well, there can't be enough digging into all the evil things that must have happened for that. So they're digging into the newspapers and the lefties are digging into the groups that were successful in supporting that. So there's, for instance, the Judicial Crisis Network. It's a 501c4, and it exists to defend good judicial nominees, and it's perfectly legit and all that. And the Federal Society they didn't actually fight in the fight, but they had their vice president, Leonard Leo, a great man, who was, mixed up in the selection of judges and advising the president, and also all those things were coming under enormous scrutiny. And so the Washington Post had thousands of word article about Leonard, trying to make it sound all dangerous and bad, and he's got this nonprofit and it gave money to that nonprofit and blah, blah. And it was all dark. So it was dark money. And the answer is, well, it is absolutely true that those nonprofits work together in that way. And do you know how the Washington Post knew about that? Because it's all publicly disclosed information. There's not a hint of illegality. Literally not even a trace of an allegation of illegality. And as we know from the Kavanaugh fight, allegations are easy to come by.
Yeah, they are.
So there's nothing wrong, and it was all publicly disclosed. And that's how the Washington Post can now make Leonard Leo sound like a big scary bad guy for his dark money, which really basically just means one nonprofit gives to another nonprofit is the easiest way to put it.
That's all in a Form 990 anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The 990 tax forms that the nonprofits file. But stop and ask yourself, wait a minute. I watched those Kavanaugh fights. There were people on the other side too, right? There were people
paid
out
for
there.
them to come in.
Gee. Now, there's not an article in the Washington Post on that, interestingly enough. They've had thousands of words of space for Leonard Leo. So, we've done the work for them. So we've helped out the Washington Post on this. I'm sure, I haven't gotten a thank you note yet, but I'm sure we will. So the single biggest group fighting the other side was something called Demand Justice. And Demand Justice didn't even exist before that year. And of course, I bet you can't guess the Hungarian that gave them millions of dollars instantly.
Whose initials are George Soros.
Yes. So this Demand Justice group pops up out of nowhere. To be the biggest fight against it, run by a Clintonista, of course. Brian Fallon's his name. So here's the fascinating thing about them, which, say, if you go to influencewatch.org, our encyclopedia of such things, you can learn all about this and see the original documents, but it doesn't exist. Demand Justice didn't file a 990 tax form to reveal.
That's right.
It doesn't have a board of directors. The Post was all fascinated by who's on the board of directors of Leonard Leo-related nonprofits, but there are no board of directors for this. There's no 990 for it. The Post talked about the vendors for the Kavanaugh supporters. I can't tell you who the vendors are for the other side, because here's the way they do it. Judicial Crisis Network is a C4, which is the main thing on the pro-Kavanaugh side, and they have a board, and they have a tax file on it. But Demand Justice, all Demand Justice is a website, right? It's just a website, and it's a project of something called the 1630 Fund.
Oh, never heard of it.
Exactly. Of course you've never heard of it. And you never will read about it in the Washington Post either. Well, it is a C4, but it has over 3 dozen little entities, little fake groups, we like to call them, like Demand Justice. But they don't have boards, they don't file tax returns, they don't reveal who their vendors are, they don't even have directors.
Is that legal under IRS code?
It is legal because, a big nonprofit can have projects however it likes. But if I am going to be self-righteous about dark money and what a terrible thing it is, that money's a lot darker because you're not seeing all that information about them that you do see. That you do see about the other side. So as I said, and by the way, all of the groups, according to that Washington Post article, all the groups associated with Leonard, they had about $3 million. And the 1630 across the cycle. So both. What were they doing? I'm trying to remember. Was it 16 and 17? It was 2 years. It was 2 years of funding. It was like $3 million of dark money.
Yeah.
Well,
which is
the 16
not very much money, by the way.
No, it isn't.
In
and
politics.
The 1630 fund, of course, has dozens and dozens across the same 2 years. It was, if I'm remembering the number right, I think it was about $64 million, something like that, across those same 2 years. All of it dark.
Yeah, of course.
Dark, to the extent it matters. I mean, the answer is legal, but dark. So I said, but the Post doesn't. The Post didn't even mention the existence of the other side. Despite the thousands of words.
And another word for what they're doing is creating fronts.
Yes,
that's exactly what it is, right?
Little front, and and it's pop it up, pop it down.
Yeah. What are you going to do? What we're going to do is take another little brief break, and we're going to come back for our final segment. Scott Walters here from the Capital Research Center. I got it. And we'll be back with Scott right after this. The Lord has made it possible for our show, Las Vegas Tonight, to thrive. We've produced well over 300 episodes telling the remarkable stories of Christians who have set out to change the world for the better. It's my honor to lead this ministry. As the founder of Dale Davidson Ministries, I'm commanded to be a good steward of all the donations our partners have so generously provided to us. As you can imagine, it takes a great deal of money to keep this program on the air in the United States and around the world. Please prayerfully consider making a one-time donation or becoming a monthly partner of Dale Davidson Ministries. Just go to vegassaints.org and select Make a Donation, or send your check or money order made out to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada 89117. For more information, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
Dale Davidson and the team at Las Vegas Tonight firmly believe that the only solution to today's serious problems is the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Dale carefully selects his guests on the show, making sure that their dedication to our Lord is heartfelt and genuine, and that their ministries are making a strong and positive difference in the world. Dale doesn't charge anyone to be on Las Vegas Tonight. The cost to produce and air the programs are covered by donations from our ministry's partners. We thank you so much for your financial support, and most of all for your prayers. Please consider becoming a partner of Dale Davidson Ministries for just $40 per month. For a little more than $1 a day, you'll be helping us bring the good news of Jesus Christ to millions of people around the world. The television networks that broadcast the program reach from coast to coast in the United States, and through internet apps cover the entire world. Your $40 monthly contribution entitles you to Dale's newsletter that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at the production of Las Vegas Tonight and inside information on the exciting guests Dale interviews on every episode. You'll also receive a copy of Dale's book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints, an in-depth look at 10 of Dale's most intriguing guests, plus a very personal story of how Dale came to Christ and the challenges he faces in bringing the good news to the world. Become a partner of our ministry today by going to Dale Davidson Ministries website and clicking on the Donate button, or by emailing Dale at dale@lasvegastonight.tv. Or you could write him at Dale Davidson, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Thank you for watching Las Vegas Tonight, and may God bless you abundantly.
I hope you've enjoyed the last two segments on Las Vegas Tonight. I certainly have. I have learned a lot from Scott Walter. Wow, dark money, what is it really? The one thing that the left seems to do extremely well, and I guess we need to do a better job as conservatives, and I think you're the point of the spear of actually getting it done, and that is, the best defense is a good offense. Bring the fight to them. And that's what you're doing, and I really appreciate what Capital Research Center is doing that way. What do we do about the media? Okay, there's a big question. The fake news, if you will, as our president calls it. As you mentioned, the Washington Post is not going to reveal any of this. There's not going to be investigative journalism by the New York Times on this. CNN doesn't even know what they're talking about. What do we do about the media as far as our point of view is concerned on this topic?
Sure. Well, you're right. I mean, it's a huge difficulty. Although we should remember, it's not as bad as. I mean, I'm so old. I can remember my TV as a kid had 3 stations on it, and you had to walk up and turn.
Yeah, that's right.
And on a good day, you might get that PBS station, but usually you just got CBS, NBC, and ABC.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's a good thing. On the other hand, we're good at talking to ourselves, but a huge chunk of the country doesn't know Fox News exists, for instance. So I'm thrilled Fox is big and doing well, but that it's not enough. You got to reach more.
Right.
So one thing that we do is we invest heavily in little 2-minute videos on social media.
Yeah.
That we have our own YouTube channel. If you search for Capital Research Center, you can find all those videos. And we do a variety of documentaries. So we do like 20-minute long ones, roughly, on things like Antifa and the crazy people at the Trump inauguration initially. And then in this fall, we're going to have a full-length feature film with Dennis Prager and Adam Carolla.
Oh, really?
No Safe Spaces, right?
Okay.
If you've heard about No Safe Spaces is the name of the movie. Again, nosafespaces.com. You can find out all about it. It'll be released in September, and it's about the craziness on campus with all the speech fights. And Dennis Prager and Adam Carolla are both hilarious, wonderful, wonderful guys for this. So we're very hopeful that that's successful. But in general, I think conservatives have to remember we like logic and facts and analysis, and we have think tanks that have papers and all, and there's a place for all that. But the main way the left wins over people is with stories. How did the Lord win people over? He had parables.
That's right.
Right? I mean, it is enormously important to remember the greatest teacher ever, with the most wonderful,
Jesus Christ.
The most wonderful message you could ever hear.
Yeah.
He used stories. He didn't say, okay, let me lay it out for you logically. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
He told parables.
Yeah.
So
there was a prodigal son,
yes.
and they get this.
That is the way to really reach most people. Some people will read the white papers from the think tanks, but most people need to have stories. So that's why we do our 2-minute videos are sort of Cliff Notes versions, but in animated and fun and and there's some citations, and you can always have, there's some links, like click the link to go back to the full story.
Right.
But you got to persuade people with the stories, because the thing is, people are poisoned against, the biggest problem of the fake news media and the horrible government schools is that they've poisoned people against us. So you're a monster, I'm a monster, you're a racist, I'm a bigot. Well, who's going to listen to us? So we better have a good story that we can tell about these things. And persons, you get to the numbers later, start with the persons. Because the left's policies, socialism everywhere, hurts people terribly.
Yes.
And let's start with the suffering that they've caused.
Yes.
As you say, take it to them.
Yeah, this family in Venezuela.
Yes.
Right?
Is suffering.
And where they used to be and where they are today, and here's why, and so on and so on.
There's a great movie on the Waiting for Superman about charter schools, right? And it shows you, in the big cities where they have the charter schools that are not necessarily fantastic, but they're a lot better than the awful government schools.
Right.
So, and you have, poor black moms holding their child and sobbing because they didn't get in the lottery. They have to lottery out the spaces in the schools.
Right.
And your kid doesn't get into that charter school, and you as a mom who loves your child, you are sobbing. Now that is big government and what it does to people. I mean, this is the great irony too. You know, the left only has the big cities and the college towns, and the big cities are in horrible shape. Not because what conservatives have ruined New York City and Chicago, right?
The last 70 years it's been D's.
It's nothing but Democrats, and it's nothing but the left, and people are suffering horribly. And it's not because there's not government dollars sloshing around. Lord knows they have the dollars sloshing around, and there's misery. So we need to be telling those stories and reaching out to those people. And if we were helping poor black folks with schools in big cities, it would be a lot harder to claim you're a bigot, I'm a racist.
And name calling is so, endemic to this whole thing on the left. And it works. That's the thing that bothers me the most. And maybe it's because of the low educated voter. Not to look down on people, but if you're not paying attention, you're going to believe this stuff you hear on CNN, right?
Yeah.
Because Trump's a bigot. No evidence whatsoever that's ever been the case. Okay, so let's call people names. We need to find a way to say, stop calling people names. This is what you're doing. You know what I mean? And I think you're right. We're not that good at being emotionally persuasive. I guess is what it is.
And stories, parables, stories. That's where it's at. If he needed parables to reach people, not a function of him, but where the people are, you need stories. You got to tell stories.
Let's talk about your faith a little bit, if we can, about Christianity. The vast majority of our viewers watch on a couple of Christian TV networks. We also have a lot of people who watch who week in and week out, really enjoy the interviews that we do, but they're not Christians. And so we use this as an evangelistic tool to try to reach them and talk about why in day-to-day life, knowing Christ can be helpful. So tell me about how Christ informs your decision-making process and, what you got into in the first place.
Sure. Well, for one thing, what you asked for practical things. So I have 4 kids.
There you go. I do too.
I love them all, but kids are not always easy. And and we have pictures of the crucifixion and crucifixes in our house. And when somebody moans that something's just too hard, oh, I don't want to go to church today, or I don't want to help mom with the dishes. It's like, he hung on the cross for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you can give me 1 hour.
That's clean up your room.
That's a useful, practical thing right there.
That's funny.
But the other thing is, what I can tell you is I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, very close to the Buckle of the Bible Belt in Nashville there. And I was raised in a Southern Baptist church. And I confess, I was a brainy, called a brain, whatever, because obviously I love books and thinking and all that. And so I pretty quickly, I wasn't that old when I thought, oh, well, this is all nonsense, right? I mean, now I always was very traditionally minded. I liked old things and old people and traditions. Which is unusual. So well, again, I was an odd little kid there, but so my thinking was, I was never anti-religion. Religion is valuable. It keeps the swinish multitude in line. But we really smart people, we don't need that because we have science.
That's right.
But then I actually got a real liberal arts education and learned about Western civilization and how
we became what we are.
Yes, and if you actually learn deeply about Western civilization in a real liberal arts education, you discover that actually the center of Western civilization is the faith. And
all revolves around it.
Yes, it's unthinkable without it. Now, it is cool that we also have, in addition to sort of the Jerusalem side of Western civilization, we have Athens, we have rationalism, and Pope Benedict XVI, in his most notorious speech, where he talked about that Muslims don't seem to have much rationalism in their faith. But he said 2 things. People missed this. He said that the problem with Islam leading to terrorism is the lack of any rationalism in it, which he thought was on its face, obviously couldn't be godly, because why would God be against all reason? But to the point of even permitting wild violence, mindless violence.
Yeah.
But he said a second thing. He said to the secular Europeans that he comes from, he said, and your problem is that, so they're closed to reason and you're closed to faith. And both things are wrong. And the reason that Western civilization has been such a spectacular triumph is because it could do both. And Christianity, more than any other religion, is completely capable of accepting rationality and the rest. In fact, why did science become the great thing and powerful thing that it is today? Because it grew up in Christian Europe.
Yes, it did.
It was in pagan Athens, but it didn't flower. And it was in India. It was the Hindus, not the Arabs, who gave us the zero.
Yes.
The Arabs just conquered the Hindus. That's all. That's why we call it the Arabic zero. But so science pops up in different places because God gave man an intellect, and He gave it to be used, and we start using it, and you start getting science. But the incredible flowering of science only happens in the Middle Ages, supposedly the most monstrous, evil thing, because everybody was a Christian then. So that's what I figured out over time. And then, of course, as I started practicing the faith again, of course, you realize it goes even deeper and more powerful, and the intimacy with God and the intimacy with others that makes possible.
Yeah, very well stated. Very well stated. It's very interesting that really ever since the Enlightenment came along, the rationalists and the philosophers in general from Europe primarily have poisoned the pool, if you will. And that is extended all the way through education, through the government schools, as you call them, the public schools, through the universities. And we're suffering because of it, aren't we? And there's a religious element, there's an ethical element, there's a moral element to all of this. And we have the duty to try to bring that around, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the most of the people in America who go and do horrible things, you discover, their family had fallen apart.
Right.
They don't have faith. And, to hear the atheist types, and I have to say, Christopher Hitchens was actually a friend of mine and came to my very religious wedding.
Is that right?
Enough.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't know that. That's great.
But that's a whole nother story. But to hear a Christopher Hitchens, you would think that it's only religion that drives people to violence and horrible things. And it is true. You can certainly find religious people committing violence. However, these days, it is usually somebody who has no good connection, lacks good connections to his family, and you've slipped into total nihilism because there's no meaning in the universe. And why do we have an opioid epidemic?
Yes.
It isn't because people are reading the Bible too much, right? We need to be pretty safe on that
That's
score.
true. Yeah.
So and in
yeah.
fact, there's a great book, Alienated America, by Tim Carney, about why some places thrive and others fail. And his real point is that it's the parts of America that are having the most trouble are the parts where civil society is collapsing. The non-government part of life is collapsing. What does he, of course, find? And by the way, it's filled with social science and data and empirical, rational stuff. Although he's a believer, and he beats us. He has 6 kids. So and he's a big Catholic. But but it's real simple. Civil society has 2 pillars, and one is the family, and the other is institutional religion. He's very clear about that. It's not saying you believe something. It's institution. You're connected to institution.
It's not someone who says, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious.
Yes, exactly. Now we need to tell those people the better stories to.
There's good news there. There's good news there.
There's a little more than that. But if you don't have those things, and things fall apart, and that's where you find, opioid deaths, crazy violence, and child abuse. All those are terrible problems.
And 100 million lives lost in the 20th century because of Hitler, who was an atheist, because Stalin was an atheist, you know.
Yeah. The God-hating tyrants make the old religious wars of Europe look like nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Or Pol Pot, who went to one of our fine Western universities and learned his wonderful... Because I always, it's so hard to decide which is the most evil of all the tyrants, but, Pol Pot killed a higher percentage of his own country.
Yeah, that's right.
So you could argue he's the worst, and again, great product of a Western secular university.
Wow. I can't believe it, Scott, but we're out of time. An hour has raced by. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you.
You're a great guy. You're doing wonderful work. I know you're a terrific husband and father. I just know it. And keep it all up.
I aspire.
Okay. Scott Walter.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. God bless you all. And as I try to say each and every show, when it comes to our Lord Jesus Christ, please follow him. Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Dale Davidson, host of Las Vegas Tonight. Radio has an enduring place in the heart of America. Sometimes it's music that can enliven your spirit or keep you company when you need some. More often for me, it's just been the right spoken word or two that can quiet my mind and soul. Radio brings me a reassuring word in the quiet of night or a welcoming voice early in the morning as I shake off the night's sleep and find my way into God's purpose for my day. And always, I find the best radio station is the one that brings me the best news, the gospel of Jesus Christ. My favorite radio station is KKVV in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's still right where it's been for years, at 1060 on the AM dial, hovering over Sin City like a gospel airship, broadcasting the good news of the abounding love that Jesus Christ has for every single one of us. No matter who you are or where you live, you can receive God's Word via the KKVV Gospel Airship. Just go to kkvv.com and click on Listen Live. KKVV is using all the tools that God's provided them, like podcasting and video streaming and video on demand, to produce programs that lift up our fellow believers and save the lost. If you feel a calling to speak to others about Jesus Christ on your very own show, pick up the phone and call the station. They'll be happy to tell you how. Call KKVV today at 702-731-5588 or drop them an email at kkvvradio@hotmail.com. Please join me in becoming part of the KKVV family. You'll be glad you did.
Morning shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with your host, Dale Davidson. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of our show. We so appreciate your loyalty to our program. To keep Las Vegas Tonight on the air, please go to our website, vegassaints.org, and click the Donate button. To send a check or money order, please make it out to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries and mail it to 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To suggest a guest to appear on the show or any other suggestions or questions, write to Dale at dalewdavidson@yahoo.com or call him at 702-480-3989.
Shine, Las Vegas, shine.